The thing about fragrance is, when you spray a fragrance on your skin, a story unfolds. The accumulative memories that you've got in your memory banks from when you've worn the fragrance previously, and all the future memories that you create, are all just in the spritz from this beautiful composition. And it raises a few points about life in that way. You get to see flashes of a movie play that only you get to experience. And in that way, fragrance is very, very intimate. Now, I know it's a bad habit, but I've always had an affinity for cigarettes because I grew up around smoking. My whole family would get together for coffee at my grandfather's house, and everyone would smoke socially. So for me, even though it's an incredibly bad habit and I don't condone it, but here we are, I find that the imagery of cigarettes is very sexy and stoic, and it also brings me back to a time when I was a kid with all those memories attached of smelling the stagnant air melded in with the coffee aroma and different desserts and just happy moments in my life that play out every time I smell someone else smoke a cigarette or I myself light up a cigarette. And in that way, we have many other fragrances that remind us of very personal experiences, like apple pie is a big one for most people. The holidays, or maybe your grandmother. For me, it's cut green peppers. Reminds me of my grandmother's house whenever she'd make homemade goulash, and apple pie is a big one. She makes the best apple pie, and I'm convinced that every grandson on the face of this planet is going to say the same thing, that their grandmother makes the best apple pie. But it always places me right at the table with her whenever I smell anything, like an Ombre Narguilé or even a Boss Bottled Intense. Those subtle nuances of the spices. And this fragrance that I'll be talking about today from Galleria Parfumes, where my very good friend Ashton Kirkland is the creative director. Brings me back to a very complicated time in my life, but I love the fragrance for what it is. So I'm going to take you on a quick journey as to what this fragrance means to me and what I think of whenever I smell it. At the beginning of the pandemic, I feel like there was a lot of connections made, and maybe even in some cases there were connections severed. But for me, I made quite a few profound friendships, and I had greater connections and greater bonds because of how life had to slow down. I became friends with Ashton, and it's to the point now where we talk at least every other day. A lot of the times we'll talk every day. My relationship with Ashton has grown beyond fragrance, and we want to get together and build memories together and do things together that have nothing to do with fragrance whatsoever. And I think that that's really what the root of what's important in the fragrance community is. That's what life is. It's about building relationships with people. At the end of the day, we're nothing if we don't cultivate and create important, intimate relationships. So naturally, when Ashton's brand Galleria launched, I believe it was back in October. That was a really strange time for me. The fall used to be my favorite time of the year, hands down. I've always said that I feel rejuvenated in the fall. My spirit feels like it's recharged, and I feel like I'm capable of taking on anything and everything that I need to take on. I pull up the straps on my boots and put my big boy pants on, and I say to myself, we're gonna get this taken care of, as far as my filmmaking career or taking my relationships head on and putting in a lot of effort in what I do. Last October for me, 2020, was such a mixed bag of emotions, both very negative and very positive. On October 20th, my best friend passed away unexpectedly from a heart aneurysm, and he was my partner and my best friend. He was my cinematographer for all my films, and he was one of my soulmates. We're lucky enough to find one person that we resonate with beyond a measure of a doubt, and in my case, I've been lucky enough to cultivate that kind of relationship with quite a few people. And then October 30th, I proposed to my now fiance, Catherine, who I was planning this big elaborate proposal for since August, and Ben was supposed to be there for it, and he wasn't. I've had to learn to experience and create new memories without him being here, and it's been really, really tough. This last Wednesday was the 1-year mark since he passed away, and all I can say in the past year's time that I've learned is that nothing is trivial. Every moment that we have is of equal importance as the next moment that we're contemplating what it is that we need to take care of, and we should live moment to moment and not be so stuck on the future all the time. Living in the present is incredibly important for us to allow ourselves to live fully. So, naturally, when my friends do well and accomplish things, I want to be supportive. And for me, Ashton didn't just come out with a brand. It's not just another YouTuber that's creating his brand and, everyone needs to rush out and purchase the fragrances and be the first to review it and create clout for yourself and name drop to stay relevant. It's very personal for me, and that's why I never asked Ashton for any free bottles. I know some people got freebies from him and bombarded him and asked him for free product so that they could review it. But I purchased the ones that resonated with me most. And for me, that's Dusk to Dawn and Cognac Cafe are the ones that I really, really resonated with the most. And Dusk to Dawn especially is my favorite from the brand. And it holds a tremendous amount of weight for several reasons. One, I get to watch my friend fulfill a dream of theirs and do it well. He is a master when it comes to navigating very pragmatic approaches to his field of work. He is a businessman, and he takes it all very seriously, and he wants to do the best at what he does. And I think that he is the most relevant fragrance reviewer today. Dusk to Dawn is a fragrance that not only solidifies my friendship with Ashton in a lot of ways, where he was trusting me to smell his products that he was coming out with, that he worked so hard on for months and months and months, or maybe it was even a year or so. But it also has all these other memories attached for the time, my metamorphosis into having to navigate all of these emotions that I was feeling at the time. And Dusk to Dawn is, to me, a very bold, a very strong fragrance, very independent. And I think that it represents that characteristic in me at this point too. Having to navigate moving through your life and approaching it in a pragmatic way, but also allowing yourself to have grace. Dusk to Dawn is undeniably a niche fragrance. I'm not going to get into the hoopla of what the note breakdown is. I'm just going to explain what it is to me and how it makes me feel. It's kind of the point of these introspective fragrance reviews, is to not get caught up in all of the logistics of a fragrance, the size of the bottles that are available, or the note breakdown, or the price point, and all that stuff. It's more or less just a diary of how it feels emotionally. And this is Ashton's brand at its best, in my opinion. It's very self-aware and very conscious of what it is that it wants to accomplish. Dusk to Dawn is essentially a fragrance that cultivates this formal endeavor into being a businessman. To me, it smells like if you took pure malt and Andy Towers Lair de Désert Marocain and blended them together. It's boozy, it's got some cedar and some incense, and it's got some bold nuances, and it's got some sexy nuances and some boozy nuances. But ultimately, it's a fragrance that knows what it wants and knows what it wants from its wearer. And I feel like with a fragrance like this, you're either going to get it or you're not going to get it. It's either going to be something that fully resonates with you, or you're going to fully reject it. Where we are now is a place that I have ventured off to and shown quite a few people that love urban exploring in the area. And I've used this place for a few of my films. One of the major ones being The Purple Dragon, which put me on the map for independent filmmaking. This place I have an affinity for, not only because of the memories that I have attached of gallivanting around with friends with book bags on and shooting in really, really hot elements and creating, which is what we all love to do best. But I've always loved urban decay because you go to a place this decrepit and falling apart, but it has all of this residual energy and leftover remnants of what was before. And Dusk to Dawn reminds me of a post-apocalyptic sky. The gradient on the bottle is a burnt orange. And when I spray this fragrance on, it reminds me of being in the midst of a very, very hot summer while looking up to a yellowish, orangish, burnt out sky. The notes in the fragrance are bergamot, cardamom, tobacco, leather, cedarwood, papyrus. And how it all blends together, how it smells, is very otherworldly to me. It's almost as if it's a fragrance that's being taken from the 70s or 80s and being rebranded as something that's very modern. And I love it for that. I think it's a very, very interesting composition that cultivates all of these subtle nuances of a fragrance that's from yesteryear, but works very well as a modern classic. And in that way, that's why I've said in the video previously, the fragrance for me isn't always about smelling the most sexy or the most modern or the most handsome or any way that you could describe a fragrance in that way of a sex appeal sort of approach. But rather, an emotional train track, so to speak, where you're riding from place to place and all these little moments in time pop up as you're passing by. Dusk to Dawn, for me, is the quintessential approach to perfumery where it knows its audience and it needs to be something that is marketable, but it also has those elements of being very creative. And for me, that's all I could ever ask from a perfume house. So I just want to say again, congratulations to Ashton for creating his own brand and coming out with his own fragrance line. And there's a lot of heaviness that comes along with that, especially as a YouTube creator, because there's an undeniable amount of apprehension and doubt that comes along with that. Well, you know, you can't create a fragrance house and be a fragrance reviewer because for some reason in people's eyes, it's as though there's not a whole lot of validity to it. You know, you're not a professional, and yet the audience will listen to our opinions and take our opinions as being a very important role in how we make our purchases. So I never understood that double standard, but I think he accomplished what he set out to do, and I appreciate Ashton as a friend, and I appreciate Ashton for his creative integrity and doing what he feels is best for him and his approach to perfumery. This fragrance is going to forever be in my collection. I love this. Like I said, it is otherworldly to me. It smells like that combination of boozy nuances and a hardened man that's been through quite a bit and realizes that he knows exactly what he wants in life. This fragrance is formal, yet wearable for any occasion, in my opinion. It lasts a solid 8 hours plus. It projects very well. I love the bottle design. The packaging is great. And I think it's a good bang for the buck. But more than that, it tells part of my story. And learning that I need to take life straight on, head on, and have no qualms about how I approach what it is that I need to take care of. So, if you're looking for a fragrance that may do that for you, I highly recommend Dusk to Dawn, and I highly encourage all of you to support Ashton in his endeavors because he's a great man. And I want you all to take a look at what it means for a YouTube creator to share parts of their vulnerability when they do create fragrances such as this that can be very meaningful for other people. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.